as far as the present moment is going to go, we will basically have it be a just fleeting dream moment, maybe an uneasy night's sleep inside of the jungle where the heat seems to be stifling. You feel like you're tossing and turning, and at some point, you just kind of stand, and underneath the full moon, you are going to kind of have this feeling of a restless night. And on some level, as you kind of stand and just try to kind of pace yourself, look for the person who would be on watch at present, you start to look around and you notice that none of your party is around you. That's kind of going to be one of the first clues that you are in a vivid dream, is that somehow everybody's disappeared. As you focus a little bit more onto the actual surroundings immediately present to you, you're going to see that the jungle itself has also changed. No longer are you all in this sunken pit that has consumed Omu, but you are back inside of the jungle a little bit more proper, back inside of this canopy of 200, foot tall trees that just create this massive jungle of chalk. And eventually, looking around enough, you are going to spot the ruins of a ziggurat to the north of you. The top of this little picture on this tab is set up to actually give you kind of the side view of the ziggurat. It is very difficult to find actual pictures, side views of battle maps, so I would say it's a little bit more properly to maybe explain a little bit of the characteristics of a ziggurat if you're not necessarily as familiar with this kind of their pyramids of kind of like Mesoamerica, as well as their kind of the pyramids of um oh man, Ancient Uru comes to mind, but I'm thinking of like the first book written in cuneiform. I can't think of the culture, but it's one of the pyramid cultures from like the Fertile Crescent, and effectively like kind of pre I mean realistically Iraq has been on this land forever, and it's part of why their culture is so old. Um but ziggurats are stepped pyramids. The one immediately in front of you has four steps to it. The first one is climbing probably about 30 feet above the floor of the jungle. The next step is about 20 feet above that. And then the final step is about 10 feet above that. And on the top, there's then what would be another step, but it is effectively kind of like a building on top of this pyramid. So there's four different levels of it, three different sets of steps. Where you're looking at, you can see on the bottom of this map that there are two steps, kind of one leading up from like the east towards the center, and one leading up from the west towards the center. And those steps travel about 50 feet as they climb about those 30 feet. You would be able to see the next step, even though I've got it hidden under the fog of war right now. Those steps that are immediately in front of you, like most of this place, are almost entirely covered by the jungle. You can see signs that the jungle has been slowly kind of consuming this pyramid and just encroaching upon it. The lowest step is very much covered in the actual vines of the jungle. Tree roots are starting to like grow up on it, almost as if the trees are stepping high onto these steps and starting to climb the steps themselves. The next set of steps that you can see go up about 20 feet as they travel about 30 or 40 feet in the same direction. They're coming from the east, traveling towards the center, and coming from the west, traveling towards the center. And then beyond that, you see one more step that goes from the second level to the third. And those steps travel about 10 feet up while they pass about 20 feet. Again, east towards the center and west towards the center. So in front of you, you can see like a giant could almost step up this thing like a big just stairs, but all of the stairs are effectively perpendicular to the climb up this pyramid in front of you.
Gotcha. Okay. What are you thinking of the Babylonians, maybe?
Yes, Babylonians. Yep.
Okay, yeah, and then like the Mayans and the Aztecs, like ziggurat. Yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. So,
So
Jared.
one of the reasons why I say it's not actually Mesoamerican is the Mesoamericans, I know they did straight steps. They had other steps like on the sides, but there was always like a single, like the main ritual was always done on a very central step, and it's one of the most difficult things trying to find jungle pyramids is that it's always going for a picture of effectively the Mesoamerican style where there is always that singular step that is basically like from the top of the ritual down to all of the people.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So Jarek is clearly kind of not really sure what's going on, seeing this kind of thing in front of him. Does the I mean, he's no architecture expert, but does this look similar in style at all to uh, the structure at Mombala?
Roll a perception for me. And let's see, I think your perception bonus is a 0, so it's the straight roll.
Yep, just a flat. Yep.
Gotcha. So when you are kind of looking around to see some of this comparative difference, there are certainly going to be things that clue you in that it's very similar to Mumbala. I think one of the biggest things that again you'll kind of see the difference is I believe when I was describing Umbala's pyramid, that was one of the styles where there was a central staircase that led up all of the actual steps, and there were different occurrences that you could see in the story as the actual steps progressed forward, even though actually, I think I still had it layered, but it was the center step. So there's going to be slight differences to it. I think what you will really pick up, though, is that the building on top, you can already start to make out some of the symbols of the maze of Ubtoa, where you're going to see. I'm not sure how many of the Ubtoa mazes I've shown you, but they tend to be kind of like circular mazes. They tend to have some of them being square, but effectively, again, like it's kind of like the reminder, Obtoa is kind of a god for like the path of life. So it was always one of those things that like wisdom is gained through life so that a person who lived their life well can walk through the maze of their life when they die, and somebody who ascends learns this while they are still living and can almost solve life before they have to die. And that's one of the things, that's why like when you all passed underneath the laughing bridge, some of those um damn, some of the mazes that you would have seen on there, that's like part of rites of passage almost in the ancient Obtoan culture that Omu, as well as ancient Chult, really rose to prominence in. So I think while you don't necessarily pick up entirely the similar things, might not even be stuff that Jarek picks up on. This is one of the things that you will definitely pick up on, that this is perhaps more ancient Chult, and maybe what is different about that is actually the Mumbalan difference more than like maybe Mumbala comes after kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, so Jarek is like gonna just kind of take a deep breath. He's not sure, what exactly is going on, but there seems kind of looking at this thing, is like I guess there's no way but up. And he's going to start moving to take the towards the staircase to his right. Just,
Gotcha. So as you start to climb the actual staircase, you're going to find the vines are difficult to pass through. The first little bit of your movement, it's simply difficult. If you continue to push on, you're going to start to feel after these first 10 feet of feeling like there's a struggle through the vine, you're going to feel as the first of these vines is going to like scratch at your flesh, and you'll take 1 point of damage.
okay. Jarek is going to like he not sure why I didn't even think of it before, but he's gonna um if he has looks like he has his weapons on him and whatever this is, he'll uh pull one out and start I think he's gonna start slashing, I think, at these vines, trying to essentially carve his way through them.
So as you start to slash out at the vines, you can certainly cut them back. You feel this certain sense of an effective, like slashing attack at these different vines as you're going to almost pull them away and throw them to the side. You're watching almost as fast as you can cut them, the vines are growing back.
Hmm. Um, the Jericho kind of as he realizes this is his like swings will start to falter. um, and he's going to kind of look around. So he hasn't really been able to make any additional distance, right?
So realistically, if you continue to try to push forward beyond those 10 feet, you can let me know if you want to. Once you try for beyond those 10 feet, that's when the vines were starting to scratch you. Do you want to continue to try to climb?
I guess if they're already kind of, I guess what I was sort of trying to get at was like if he was able to make any distance and then kind of like he would like turn around to see if they're also growing back up behind him, like blocking his retreat. But without if he essentially can't really move past those first 10 feet, he's slashing at the vines, but they keep kind of growing back, and he's, knows that if he tries to push through, they're going to be scratching at him. I think he would stop and kind of try and see if he can figure something else out about
Gotcha. So as far as I'm considering it right now, I would say at present, whoops, I think it copied you because I was holding Alt. Do you see one of you on there right now?
okay, yep, I see one now. Yep, the second one got
Gotcha.
deleted.
Okay. So as far as I've got you having already moved up 10 feet through the difficult vines. I basically, once you took the little bit of damage from feeling that first cut, that's when I would assume that you've pulled out your sword and started to slash at them and see that it's not actually paving any way forward. Do you want to look back and you basically have the vines still there behind you? Or do you want to simply start to retreat down the stairs? What kind of thoughts? Like, I don't necessarily. Part of why this is a weird little setup is because it is kind of like a mental puzzle to figure out what you're doing. So it will almost have to get into the minutia of each action that I don't want to assume that you went backward to pull out your sword. But if you do think you would have walked down the stairs to start cutting your way up, we can do that. But we have to kind of like focus on the tiny little things too.
Yeah, I don't think he. Yeah, I don't think he would have retreated yet. He would have just kind of turned to look back behind him after you know, kind of having his progress halted after these first 10 feet. Um, and then he will. Um,
So when you turn and look, perhaps one thing that you'll notice is that effectively when you are stopped, the vines aren't necessarily troubling you. It would be difficult to walk back over them to like descend the stairs, but only difficult in the way that they kind of rounded off the stairs anyways. You know what I mean? Like the vines aren't everything is going to feel a little bit more kind of fairy tale-ish in that when you stop, it almost feels like the vines have stopped.
okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so I think Jarek is going to. I mean, kind of recalling what had occurred at Lumbala and seeing like these vines scratching him, thinking maybe probably the first thing that comes to mind is maybe he needs to offer some sort of offering or like small sacrifice to get through the things. He's going to like kind of with like the um maybe he's with his blade he's going to make a small kind of cut in the like on the palm of his hand and then kind of like squeeze it, trying to like drop some of the blood onto the vines in front of him, see what if that does anything.
Gotcha. So you can make a little incision just to prick enough blood to kind of drip some off onto the stairs and the vines ahead of you. Roll a perception check here.
Yeah, and again, that's just a flat 11.
So immediately you're going to notice not much of a change. The vines don't seem to be reacting. The stairs don't seem to be any more cleared. What's your first thought as you start to see that maybe offering blood isn't exactly what it's looking for?
um well, plants need water, so even though they seem to be very verdant growth, he might take out his water skin and um almost like kind of trying to wash away the little specks of blood, like kind of putting the water in the same place where he dropped the pieces of blood onto the vines in front of him, like sprinkling it. And I guess that would probably be his first thought.
Gotcha. So when you start to sprinkle water across these stairs and the vines to start to kind of wash away this blood sacrifice that you offered, you are going to see a similar sight. Or not similar, familiar. It's a tiny little creature. You are going to see a tiny little, almost kind of like wispy creature with a white face and kind of eyeballs that are almost floating around within this face. Um, One thing that I do like about Owlbear Rodeo is that you can realistically shrink and grow tokens, so I can actually make tiny creatures legitimately their size. So you might not see it, you might see it, but there's a tiny little chwinga that is basically showering in the water that you start to drape across the stairs.
Okay. Yeah, so Jarek is taken aback a little bit, but he's gonna kind of like squinting and like not really sure. He sees it at first, but then he's going to. Um, I think he'll try and greet it after he gets over his initial surprise. just kind of a greetings, friend, and comment.
Gotcha. So as you are, potentially like leaning in to speak to it, you're going to see that this Chwinga is holding a orchid that seems to be kind of a purple and orange flower. And it just kind of like twirls it in its hands before it is going to start to run up the stairs. And you will see as before each footstep can land on the stairs, the vines are going to pull back and it steps onto just a clean open stair. And immediately upon picking up its foot, the vines are going to grow back over that stair. And this Chwinga is going to run up to the top of the stairs and then disappear.
Okay, so seeing this, Jarek is going to, when he was outstanding at the before coming onto these stairs, did he see any similarly colored flowers, plants, as what the Schwinga is holding? And if he doesn't recall, he would probably move down to try and take a look, thinking maybe that's the thing he needs.
Yeah, I'd say roll a. You could either choose to do a survival, a nature, yeah, a survival or a nature. Whether you want to try with proficiency or whether you want to try without it.
I think he probably wouldn't have. He wouldn't have been thinking of this or looking, keeping an eye out for this at the start. So probably just a nature check, which will be
Gotcha. Yeah. Do the nature then, and we'll go for the straight. Oh wait, wisdom, I think, on nature.
yeah, it's actually -1.
Okay, it is intelligence worth. So as far as things go, it's kind of pretty set like in how it's kind of designed. I like the idea of allowing the role to actually change a little bit of it. But as far as things go, it's not difficult to find the flower. It is going to take you a certain amount of time within this experience. But as far as things go, you will eventually be finding this flower after a given amount of time, probably about what feels like half hour, 45 minutes or so of searching. You can find the flower. When you return to the stairs, the first 10 feet, you will already experience where the vines and the thorns are pulling back before your footsteps. And by the time you make it up beyond there, you're going to experience where the thorns are no longer kind of like stabbing into your flesh, and you can walk up to the second level of the ziggurat. Again, from this level, these stairs go up, I think it's about 30 feet. On the second level is, yeah, 30 feet up, or 30 feet right to left, and 20 feet up for the second level. These stairs are not covered in vines. They actually look quite pristine, very much kind of just almost brand new stone.
Okay, so kind of as he reaches this level, Jarek's just going to take the time to kind of sniff. And is there any particular scent to the flower? Anything I guess recognizable or particularly um, impressive is not the right word, but noticeable or
That's technically still an impression. Like impressive is like those things. It's what we bring in by sense. Um, I don't think that there isn't a reason for it not to be. I don't necessarily know if there's anything in particular Jarrek's going to pick up from it. But I feel like, especially in a jungle, a flower is going to still probably be very aromatic. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there would be a big thing that kind of leaps out to. somebody like Jarek.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think he'll kind of like try and maybe like tuck the flower like on his person, maybe like in a pocket so that it's like still on him, but he's not holding it at the moment. And he's going to like looking around on the ground here on this level before he heads for the next set of stairs. Does he see any like any signs of, like mosaics or writings or carvings or anything on the stone?
I feel like the stone of this place is actually rather bare, except for the mazes that you can see on the shrine at the top.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so in that case, I think he would just start moving. Um, Probably going to use the plan to use the same side, so go up the right set of stairs, but he would start making his way over towards them.
Gotcha. So as you step onto the first stair, you are going to immediately kind of feel as the stair crumbles beneath your foot, and you can see that you've not actually walked up the ziggurat at all. That first step onto the staircase crumbles the stairs almost like it's chalk, and your foot is back on this immediate layer.
Hmm. So he, yeah, I guess Jarek would, after this happens, he's going to lean down and just take a look at the. Can he make out what material these stairs seem to be were made of, like from the kind of looking through the dust and the kind of broken remnants?
So kind of looking through things, you're going to see it seems to be that this place is constructed from kind of like a sandstone. They seem to be kind of the same aggregate stone, and there doesn't appear to be anything in particular different about these stairs than the rest of this structure. But I think
Okay.
sandstone is one of those stones that's like almost like nature's concrete. So it really is like kind of a combination of different things that seem to have solidified into these blocks. Most of the structure seems to be, though, like one of those styles where it's very large flagstone blocks that are then cut down into these particular blocks. Most of the stairs would probably still be maybe almost like say like 5 blocks in this 30 feet wide, where they have that stair pattern kind of carved into the side of the blocks. The stairs seem perfectly fine other than like the crumbling.
Okay. And was it just that first step that he tried to step on that crumbled, or did it seem to have almost like a cascading effect, like the higher steps also crumbled?
Well, for what it's worth, I almost have to like stop it at that like first moment you're trying, you're going to crumble the step. So if that thought, like the way you're thinking already, I think the next thing Jarek might be trying to do is almost trying to run up it and try to move faster than the steps can crumble. Is that kind of what you're thinking there?
Yeah, I guess instinctively, kind of feeling it giving out below him, he would. I think, yeah, he would instinctively kind of just rush forward and essentially try to, almost like a foot race, try to get up to the top. Yeah, that makes sense.
Gotcha. Do an athletics or an acrobatics. I think you can do both. And what is it? Dexterity is probably better. So acrobatics.
Yep,
And what is it? A +7?
+7. Yep. Ooh, nat 20.
Gotcha. So you are going to start to almost like leap up these stairs, kind of seeing that if the stairs are going to crumble, maybe if you skip 2 stairs and you try for like every third step, in a big kind of sweeping, leaping motion from side to side that you might be able to gain the most distance. And in the first few moments of this, you are going to feel yourself kind of get about like 6 feet up. As you're running up, you're starting to see kind of that top level, like just beyond the reach of your hands. And by the time you go to plant your third footstep, as you are running up these steps where you feel like you should be halfway up, 3/4 of the way up this staircase, you are going to notice right to left, you haven't moved. The moment you start to pay attention to where you are, you're back on the bottom level of the steps. Whatever you just did, you crumbled some steps, but you made no headway.
Jarek is a little bit at a loss here. I think the first thing he would do is he's going to try and move over to the other side and see if the same thing is going to happen on that end.
Gotcha. Roll a perception check for me. Is that another 20?
That's flat 20. Yeah. That
Gotcha.
was this.
No, no, no. I just meant like, was that a different one? I felt like you cleared the 20 last time, but I wasn't actually looking when it showed up.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. That was a new roll.
So when you get over to the next set of staircases, you are going to see another familiar sight of one of these tringas with its face kind of rotating in circles. You're going to see that it has the same kind of tiny orchid on it that is orange and purple. And this time it's almost using a parrot's feather, kind of like a walking staff. And while you are coming around this corner, you're going to watch as it casually walks up the staircase and to the top of the stair.
Okay. So Jarek is going to look around. Does he? First of all, I think he would look up. Like, does he see any birds flying about overhead? And then, um, I think
Roll either an intelligence or a perception there.
I'll just probably do intelligence.
So I think at that level, it would be recalling that, like, birds of paradise are certainly something from the jungle. Perhaps you can't in particular recall ever seeing one for yourself. But I think on some level, most people would still at least have the understanding that part of the allure of jungle locations is like the birds who have these feathers. Um, Maybe not too much more to recall though.
Okay, so I think at that point, then he would start looking around on the ground beside him, essentially looking for a another feather. Maybe he can use. Maybe there's something about this feather that is important.
Roll a perception check as you kind of look around. So, kind of passing around this level a little bit, you don't see a feather immediately, but as you're kind of like rounding around and finishing the loop and almost making it back to the eastern side, you will see in one of the little trees that's kind of hanging off near the edge and growing towards the temple, you spot one of these feathers and you can pick it out of the tree.
So Jarek will go and do that, and then he is going to. I think he'll actually return to um, the right side where he was initially, and he's going to hold the feather out at the kind of the crumbled staircase and see if anything happens there first.
Like at present, just holding it out in front of you, not actually trying to ascend.
Almost just kind of like brushing it against the rubble, but not actually starting to walk up yet.
Yeah, for now, I would say there's no change right now.
Okay. So I think in that case, he will, with the feather in hand, he's going to return over back to the left side, and then, um, with it in hand, kind of, uh, he will start trying to walk up.
Gotcha. So with the feather on you, you are able to ascend the staircase as if it were a normal staircase. There's no kind of feel for them giving way beneath your feet. And with each step, you make it a little bit higher before you will see the next level before you. This is almost, I have to let go of alt, my bad.
No worries.
One of my favorite things about Owlbear Rodeo is that it lets me layer fogs of war. So each of these levels has been a layer of fog of war, and I just erase the whole layer when you guys get there. It's one of my favorite things because I can prepare, like, this is what you'll see as you move forward.
Yeah, from what I've seen or heard from people, the dynamic lighting on Roll 20 is one of the biggest like pain points trying to get that to work the right way.
Oh, I gave up on dynamic lighting ages ago. I would almost always have one person out of a group who had difficulties with it. And for how many hours of time a map would take to set up, if you have issues with dynamic lighting, there's no reason to set it up in the first place after that.
Yeah, yeah, like somebody would just have a black screen, and then it would,
Yeah.
fix it for that person, but break it for somebody else, and yeah.
So, getting up to this level, you are going to see this staircase goes right to left and left to right about 20 feet, with about, now that you're closer to it, it's not 10 feet of incline, but it's like 12 feet of incline. So, it is just beyond kind of your, like, double your height to, say, climb up to the next level. But you can start to see much closer the actual building on top of it. The stairs of this level are covered in slithering snakes.
So Jarek is going to very cautiously start walking towards one of them. And he wants to see, like, are the snakes, do they seem to be paying any attention to him in particular as he gets closer?
Let me have a wisdom from you. So, as you approach the snakes, I think you already probably have a good enough idea of what magic this temple has is certainly related to the stairs and the actual process of climbing them. While you walk towards the snakes, they don't seem to do anything. As you approach the stairs, you have a pretty solid idea that if the snakes are going to do something, it's going to be while you climb the stairs.
Right. Um, yeah, so he's Jarek's thinking, okay, so he needed water for the vines, he needed this bird feather for the crumbling staircase. I think at this point, probably what he'd do is look around to see if he can spot the Schwinga again, like near the staircase.
I guess the reason I was supposed to describe their heads is so you actually recognize that they're different Chwingas. I love the idea of making them the Chwingas from Princess Monozuki, but technically, the first one wears a mask of a Triceratops. The second one wears the mask of a chameleon. But as you kind of investigate the stairs and take a few moments kind of looking around, you are indeed going to see a third Chwinga. This one has the mask of a mongoose, and you see that it too has both the orchid as well as the feather of a parrot. and it is going to move up to one of the snakes and smack it with the orchid. And you're going to watch as the snake kind of like reels up to strike out at the Chwinga, where it's going to almost like tickle the underbelly of the snake with the parrot's feather, and then the Chwinga and the snake kind of in eye contact, both of them are going to kind of lay back down onto the ground as the snake kind of calms itself and returns down to its belly. The Chwinga's kind of dropping to its chest almost in a push up and kind of like planking across the floor here. And the Chwinga is going to open up its mouth, and the snake is going to start to slither inside of its mouth before the Chwinga is going to, in that same position, start to slither up the stairs.
Okay, so yeah, Jarek is very taken aback at kind of seeing this. At first, he's almost like he like leans forward, almost thinking like the snake's gonna try and eat the Chwinga. But then he stops himself and just kind of watches this whole thing play out. Um, Gonna kind of like shaking his head to himself, but seemed like copying what he saw the Chwingas do before seems to have worked. So I think he's going to kind of with the parrot feather and the orchid in hand, he's going to move up to the towards that first stair. He's going to reach out and kind of feeling a little bit foolish, probably, but um, is going to kind of like almost slash the orchid at like one of the into like the snakes at the kind of forming the bottom set of bottom stairs.
Yep, so when you smack one of them with the orchid, you're going to have that same kind of moment where the snake is going to reel up. It will start to make eye contact with you.
And and as that happens with his other hand, kind of with the feather, he's going to kind of move his hand out and try and copy the Schwinga's movements and almost like tickle the snake.
Yep. So as you kind of like pet its underbelly with the parrot's feather, it seems to relax the snake and almost calm it back down, where it's going to slowly start to drop back down fully to the ground, still basically locked eyes with you.
Okay, so now as this happens, Derek is going to, and feeling kind of unsure, he's going to like move to get down closer to the ground. Um, and almost move to similarly kind of move himself on top of the snake and trying to copy what he saw the Twinga do. Although, given how much bigger he is, probably looks kind of weird.
You're going to start to slither up the stairs.
Uh, yeah, I get. I mean, yeah, as best he can. Yeah. Well, I guess it would be more really like a more realistic, like a crawl.
When you start to make your way up the stairs, you are going to get struck by a few of these different snakes, and you are going to take what was that? 6 piercing damage, and I need you to make a Constitution saving throw, please.
+5 for con save.
And then you are holy shit! I rolled 2 under max damage. You are going to take 22 poison damage.
So if we were keeping his health at where it was in the night,
For what it's
Um,
worth, we would be doing like a full health, like full rested Jarek. So I would say try not to modify too much so we can jump back into the actual game as is. But I think normally you should have 53 health at the start of a day. So I think you should
yeah.
have lost, what was it? It was 6 on the first roll, so 28 there. I think you should be missing 29 hit points. So I think you should be at 24.
Yep, 24. And I stupidly changed my hit points in D&D Beyond.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you can guess even remotely close to what you were at, that's all that really matters. I think like you guys are already picking up most of Omu is figuring out puzzles more than it is fighting. The red wizards are where you're going to be fighting, and that stuff really matters.
Right. Okay. Let me just okay, I think I got it back to about where it was, but from now on I'll just keep this in on pen and paper. So Jarek is going to I guess kind of like rear back as these things are biting into him.
So, can you remember what you did differently than the Chwinga?
So he did the swipe with the uh orchid, then tickling with the feather. Oh, the you said the snake like slithered into the Chwinga's mouth, right?
Yes, you you bat it with the orchid, calm it with the feather, lay down, and then open your mouth, and the snake slips into your mouth. So if you do that this time, and you go through that process again, this time when the snake slithers into your mouth, roll another Constitution save for me.
It'll be an 8.
It's not supposed to be this hard. So this time when the snake kind of slithers into your mouth, holy shit, good. You are going to take 9 psychic damage as you are going to just, it feels wrong, and it kind of like almost drops you out of this sort of trance state, and you are going to kind of start to retch and just kind of struggle through the moment. What do you have in mind as you kind of go through this like mental pain of why am I swallowing a snake?
Yes, I think it's like Jarek was kind of the first time he tried this, he's after seeing what had happened with the Chwinga, he's like, I don't want to do that. So he's like almost thinks like maybe he can, skip that step. Then obviously that didn't work. And now as this is happening, he's just all he can think is like this is so, so weird. He's like kind of like he's shuddering. He's does it seem to be like going all the like down his throat, or is it like kind of coiling in his mouth? Um,
Yeah, I would say on some level it is certainly that it's basically going down your throat and it feels like choking. Again, though, it kind of returns to the idea of this is very much kind of like a fairy tale type of feel, how things are happening here, how the magic seems to reset. Like any given moment almost doesn't feel like the moment before it. They're all kind of like individual points in time. So there's like that eerie kind of feel to how things are as is. But yeah, like the actual choking process, like the fact that it tells me it's psychic damage tells me that you're not choking on the snake so much as like the mental hoops that you have to jump through to tell yourself to do this are where you're struggling.
right. Okay. And he's thinking of like, okay, this Twingo's wearing a mongoose mask, and mongoose and is it mongoose or mongooses and snakes are,
I
you
don't know
know,
if I've ever heard the plural of mongoose.
I think they're like enemies, right? They're well known.
It's if it's moose and mice, then it's got to be mongoose and mongoose. But yeah, mongoose are definitely like the predators of snakes.
Yeah, so he's like kind of through this like mental pain, almost trying to like block out like what's actually, quote unquote happening. He's going to try and recall, okay, like did he see the Twinga seem to like swallow the snake, or once it was in its mouth did it seem to start moving at that point, and he would try to follow that uh example.
Yeah, I think you wouldn't have noticed anything that tells you that you're doing it wrong to where there's something to correct. And I feel like for Jarek, that's probably something that would at least steel you to try it again. With that in mind, I believe you are pretty injured at this point, so I don't think it would be a bad idea to kind of recognize and, whatever your, um, I always think of it as like drinking alcohol, like whatever your potion is for your short rest ability, like whatever that is, it's kind of time to like pop that as like a steel your will and jump back into this.
Gotcha. Yeah, so so Jarek would move to with the healer's kit almost
Oh
more
no,
for
no,
like.
second wind. That's what I was thinking. My bad. Second wind came to mind.
Okay. Yeah, he would kind of do that, try to like steel himself as like this the snake is um you know uh coming through his mouth, and just trying to almost like yeah, he'll try to second wind himself.
You're also welcome if you wanted to use the healer's kit. I just couldn't think of second wind. I always like lose the name of that skill.
I think second wind makes more sense.
Gotcha. So when you are prepared, you can go through your step of second winding. You can roll the dice to figure out where that's going to put you at mechanically. Um, and laying back down, doing like the tap with the orchid, the tickle and calm with the feather, laying down, allowing the snake to kind of slither down your throat and into your body. Roll a Constitution saving throw.
13.
13? All right, excellent. So this time you don't have a problem with it. When you go to start to like crawl up the stairs, kind of like you did the first time, your body's going to respond with a very natural feel of slithering up the stairs, and you are going to pass into the top level. Give me 1 second before I reveal it, because I didn't think about one thing when I created this.
Sure, yep, no problem. I actually just need to step away for a minute, so you might take a
Oh,
quick
you're
five
good.
minute.
Yeah, I'm
I'll be
agreeing with you, but yeah, I'm good. You can definitely take a break there.
all right. Just like 5 minutes, I'll be back.
My bad. You sat down right as I bit into a tomato.
No worries.
So, as you get to this top layer, you see that this structure is effectively like, say, I think like 40 by 40. And aside from a little bit of a route that goes all the way around in like a 5 or 10 foot walkway, there is a building that is at the top of this. Each little square of the stone you see is almost like a mosaic of these obtoing mazes, and they all kind of make out a larger general maze that kind of like stands at like each kind of like larger portion of this actual building. But as you kind of go around it, you can kind of see that there's at least a certain novelty to each one of these that at first glance you're at very least going to think like this mosaic of the mazes seems to be created out of unique and individual mazes. But other than that, there is effectively a 10-foot like wide door that enters into this chamber that is at the top of the stairs, and it is basically that little bit that's just to the north of you. What kind of thoughts do you have as you ascend to the top of these stairs?
So as he's looking about at these mosaics, is there if he is like trying to move around up here, does it look like is he able to discern? Does it look like there's a particular path he needs to follow, like essentially through this mosaic maze? Like, is it like is
Oh no,
there?
my bad. The mosaic is like the walls of this building that are still in front of you. So from like the floor of the jungle, you could see like the larger construction of the Ubtoan mazes. But now that you're closer, you're almost seeing that each one is almost like a fractal, where there's much smaller, say like 6 by 6 mazes that make up these larger like 6 foot by 6 foot mazes.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah, my bad. I definitely could have added the actual like difference in the size by giving you a measure. I feel like that's definitely a clutch part of describing it like that.
Um, yeah, so I think Jarek is going to kind of taking a few taking some time to kind of like steel himself after his ordeal with the snake stairs. Will start moving towards this. You say it was a door or just like an entranceway? Sorry.
I think at present it is fine to say is an entranceway. Roll a perception check for me. So yeah, as you approach it, I'm gonna say, perhaps there are signs that there were like from the top of the stairs, say it looks like some vines almost have like covered the door a little bit, and you would have to clear them away. As you approach a little bit closer, you see a little bit more properly that this probably used to be a door, and it is rotted with like the ancients of time, and it seems to be little more than just kind of the remainders of some of these plants. As well as you approach a little bit closer, you smell the scent of incense, kind of that little bit of like smoke and kind of like burning wood, maybe a little bit of something like sandalwood, perhaps some of the actual like effervescence of the orchid. But as you're approaching this, it would appear that whatever is inside of this room is perhaps burning some incense. Oops, I didn't mean to do that right away. Was trying to actually think of something different so I could hide that creature right away. Because effectively, when you walk into this room, it is going to be empty.
Okay, yeah, I think so. Jarek, like first of all, would like as he approaches and looks at the vines, he would kind of check to see if he sees like any thorns or anything on them. But then, assuming he like doesn't see anything that looks particularly dangerous, again, he would kind of like take a deep breath, kind of steel himself, and then kind of move to walk through inside and head inside.
Yeah. So that little square was what I created. That little. That's again part of what I was saying, like where it's a vastly different like simplicity to creating like a little bit of fog of war. It takes like those few moments to create like two different layers, and then I can disappear them in a single click. Um, so when you walk into this room, yeah, you're not going to see thorns on these vines in the same way as the lower level ones. This seems to be a little bit more naturally jungle. As you initially step into this room, you do smell the incense. You are going to see around you this just kind of dilapidated and long ignored room. And in kind of an instant of looking around, you are going to hear a voice that is going to welcome you with, "Welcome to my, what brings you to shrine?" And you are going to see, as you're kind of like panning around looking through this room, that the room is almost changing, as like an illusion is dropping, and there's almost just like a line of just bringing back some sort of ancient time. You're seeing paint on these walls kind of like reapplying pressing alt, it duplicated it, like paint paint reapplying across the moment that you're looking at these walls, as these gaudy, bright and flashy colors are almost jumping out of the walls. And as you kind of like look around for what's speaking to you, you're going to see massive coils, almost a foot and a half, 2 feet diameter at different points, and this long body of a snake that's almost 15, 20 feet long, and towards the head of it's kind of the hood of a cobra. And as it kind of like starts to speak to you, you're going to see, as the hood opens, one, two, three, and four arms are kind of going to extend out of the hood. And as it kind of like speaks to you, you're going to see, as the mouth kind of, as it's speaking, almost each moment and coil of the muscle separates different portions of its mouth, and you're going to see that each one is almost an individual head, of a smaller snake, and it seems to be speaking to you as kind of a unity.
Okay, so Jarek, kind of watching this unfold, and is kind of hesitant to step in any closer at this point. He's kind of he's definitely he's staying kind of near the entryway. But as it uh, speaks to him, um, does he does he recall seeing any sort of kind of on their journey through Schultz any depiction of a similar looking creature?
Roll a history check for me. While you're doing that, I forgot to describe that you're also going to see, like, while you're panning through, that there's like lamps and like cushions across the floor. It's going to be kind of a wispy moment of like, this room that was empty moments ago seems to be like furnished and actually like lived in. Um, so I think your history check is a 0 as well.
I think it'd
Like
actually
it's
be it's
it's
intelligence. It would be -1, so it'd be a 5.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think that's a big difference realistically. So yeah, looking kind of like trying to like piece together things. I don't believe you all have come across any information about what this thing is.
Yeah, so Jarek is going to kind of like open his mouth to answer, close it again, almost like kind of like tilting his head as he's kind of taking this creature in. Um, and then finally, he's just going to almost like a shake of his head, say, "To be honest, I don't rightly know."
I am Saba. Nabaza, what do you seek in this ancient place? Speak truly. I see your heart. Whatever you desire, whatever you search for, consider wisely.
The Jarek is going to kind of taking Saba's advice is kind of silent for probably a good number of seconds, and then finally he's going to almost with like a heavy sigh. um it's like see kind of like the muscles in his jaw kind of clench before he answers, myself, redemption.
How would you redeem yourself?
I have done bad things in my life for bad people, not always knowingly, but I came here, and he'll kind of, as he's saying like here, he's almost kind of like gesturing around to kind of like the idea of like encompassing like the jungle and Chult and all that. Um, I came here to help the people here, and in doing so, hope I can make up for past misdeeds.
I have lived thousands of years, many lives of your people, beyond count. And there is one truth that is always present. The way we live our lives, our choices, our actions, they define us far more than our past. Where we are is what matters. Where we were is behind us. Are you not redeemed already?
So Jarek is going to kind of, considering these words, he's gonna again almost kind of like he's gonna fall silent first for a time, and then and then he's like kind of like as he's doing, it's like he's thinking also of like kind of the companions they've lost since they've gotten to Chult, and sort of like almost kind of like thinking of like his failures to save some of his companions. And finally he's going to kind of give like a short sharp shake of his head and say, in my mind, not yet.
The dead that you have lost are not yours to bear. If you carry them towards an end that is good, they are friends still. If you allow them to drag you down and pull you away from helping others, they are nothing more than haunting ghosts.
So Jarek is going to kind of give a heavy sigh. He's kind of listening to these words, and then finally give like a small nod. Perhaps you were right. Perhaps I am too hard on myself, but it is difficult for me to see my friends fall, even if, as you say, they did so in furtherance of a good end.
Death is but a new beginning. For you to fear their end speaks much more on your own fears, for they are in another place where their choices once again can occur, and their life can flower once more from the jungles of life.
Jarek will give another nod, and then at this point he'll start kind of moving closer as he's stepping further into the room. Again, he'll give like a nod and say, "I hope you were right."
There are many things where one can be both right and wrong, and it is simply a matter of the perspective of how we see that which is. If I am right, it is only because you choose for it to be right. If I am wrong, it is only because you choose for it to be wrong.
Jarek will kind of like tilt his head at that, kind of trying to puzzle it through in his mind, what the kind of the meaning of those words, and then finally he'll say, "Then I suppose I choose to believe you are right."
Look forward to what lies beyond and seek out the ways you can help those you've come here to help. Mind yourself not to look backward. Where you have been is gone, while you look forward. You can redeem yourself moment by moment.
Jarek will nod. That is my hope. I believe we have found my companions and I have found a way to do that. Though I must admit I have doubts as to whether we are up to the task. But I suppose all I can do is try. And perhaps in trying, succeed.
If you have found what you search for, and worry you are not ready, You might find yourself growing in the trying before you realize at the end that you have already done what you believed was impossible.
So Jarek will again kind of take a few seconds and then finally just give like another kind of deeper nod. Um, but not saying anything immediately afterwards, just kind of almost at a loss for words for a few moments, it seems like. And then finally he'll say, I do not know if I have found what I am searching for, but then he'll kind of fall silent again, kind of shake his head again. But again, perhaps you are right.
If you do not know what you are searching for, how can you be sure that you are on the path to find it?
That is an excellent question. Hope, perhaps faith, whatever the case. As you say, I cannot look backward. I We have come to where we are, and there is no way but forward.
So I don't think Saja is necessarily going to like lead the conversation anywhere. You are more than welcome to continue the conversation, but there is a certain level of just any level of silence. Saja is the type of being that is very much going to kind of sit with you and effectively, like almost in a meditative, just time. They're not necessarily going to push the conversation in one way or another, but are effectively just kind of welcome you into this space.
Yeah, so I think kind of at this point, Jarek is going to um, almost like wearily look about and maybe take one of the seats on one of the like cushions or couches um, before kind of looking back towards Saba, trying to kind of like thinking of you know if there's something he wants to ask um, Jarek. I mean, finally he'll just kind of as he's like seating himself down, like, do you think we will find the way to end this curse if we if you can you see my path?
Roll an insight for me. And what is your modifier there?
That's just a straight. Oh no, insight is
Plus
plus
three.
three.
Gotcha. So as you bring up the curse, I think this is going to kind of reflect on you that while this creature has some level of kind of like prescience where they know more than they should, it is not something that they just know everything. They are almost reading what you are thinking, feeling, and the way that you are talking. So I think on some level you are going to pick up the moment that you actually bring up the curse. This creature is kind of going to like reel for a moment where it's almost shocked. And I think it's enough to kind of sense that. I think more could have been from like a higher role, being a little bit more present in the moment. But I do think Jarek is perhaps a little bit more inwardly focused than he's often would be. Um, but the creature's going to kind of reel, and as it kind of like gathers its disposition, this curse is new. It has not lain on Schultz for long. It is far from my view. Many thousands of years in my future are you. You feel close to the source. And I really want to make it so much like the caterpillar scene where it's like smoking a hookah. But I think there's just kind of like billowing smoke from the insights and incense in this room, and kind of like the actual like sensation of this room is almost going to deepen as it kind of brings to light that when you walked into that room, that was that room in the present day. When you are sensing this creature, you are almost thousands of years in Chalt's history back in time.
Yeah, so Jarek is I think like seeing the creature kind of like reel backwards after he brings up the curse and after hearing this and I think uh he would apologize. I think he would say like I'm sorry I did not, not mean to mean for my words to disturb you. Um
There is no need for you to apologize for that which is not your creation.
Jarek, Jarek will kind of give a grateful nod at that.
So this is another one of those points where perhaps perhaps one of the things to keep in mind is that there's definitely keywords and things for you to share that will bring this creature more and more into that same level of knowledge. And while we don't necessarily have to role play the entirety of what you would like to share and not share, that moment of bringing up the curse is one of those things where there's a certain level of, depending on what you would like to talk about and how much you would trust kind of saying openly to this creature, will also be able to depend on a lot of what you can get from it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to be like me, the player is trying to be cognizant of I'm not like I don't want to use this thing as like, asking this thing like how do we essentially how do we win kind of thing. But I think Jarek would, I think probably he is still, we've agreed to help Rostny, but I think he is definitely he's definitely, especially given his own history of kind of working with, bad people, he's not real comfortable about that, and he is trying to think like how he would bring that up.
So, if I can say in particular, then that would take it to If you're thinking about it, it's sensing it. So are you thinking about how to bring up that you guys are potentially working with Rosne?
Yeah, yeah. I think he would be thinking about that.
So that's kind of what I was getting at as well. I don't want to put stuff in to your words where I'm just going to like run with this creature and its abilities. But when you actually start to then almost with this like theoretically like a sense of guilt, I don't want to put it into your character, but if that like level of redeeming myself begins to like impress upon, am I doing the same thing with Ross Knee, where I'm going to feel this again that I have to redeem myself? You're going to see this creature reel once again. And this time, as it kind of reels back, you're going to see as like the hood and all of these muscle fibers that are almost individual snakes are going to, in kind of like a hissing moment, like spread out, and you will see a otherwise kind of feminine form, almost like a skeleton inside of this creature, as like the snakes all kind of like spread out like a flower, and the arms are kind of like spread in kind of like a clenched like motion. And you'll see as she kind of like reels back and almost curses like this. And then all of the snake, like individual muscle fibers, kind of fall back into form, where the head of the snake is back into form, and it's going to kind of respond. Let's see. Is the bane of Ubda. He long ago betrayed all the tabaxi of his people to lose his form. He turned to Snassi. Should not be trusted.
Kind of Jarrek's jaw muscles clench as kind of he, hearing these words sort of reinforces his own kind of misgivings that he, hadn't actually, um, audibly said out loud yet, but like reinforcing his thoughts. And then he's gonna kind of like aloud he'll say, had had we a choice, would not be my decision to even temporarily work with such a creature. My hope is that we have accomplished our more immediate tasks, be able to return and give to him what he deserves.
Look forward, not back. The past is gone. Future is ahead. Snassi is a pawn. Even now, his surrogates would betray.
So as Saba is saying this, Jarek is thinking of when uh, Jer mentioned surrogates, he's thinking of the Yuan Ti, and then that brings him to I think the name Dendar is going to pop into his head because the Yuan-Ti, I think when they had captured them or when they were trying to get them to when they were encircling their camp, they had mentioned, taking them to the temple of the night serpent Dendar, I think. And so that would be kind of the first things popping into his head as he's hearing this. Um, and then I believe that we had also been told that there was some creature from like beyond this plane who was responsible for the curse, and Jarek would be thinking of that. And then I think, you know, as he's thinking this, he would kind of opening his mouth to speak, he would say, are then the Yuan-Ti or whatever they serve, is that the true threat to Jolt?
So I think you would definitely see more kind of troubled, emotive things from this creature at present. In kind of a moment of turmoil, I think it's going to kind of oscillate between kind of two different thoughts while it kind of gathers itself. And you can see that it's almost in like a deep state of thinking before it responds to you sometime later with Nar, the night serpent is two words. Serpent consumes entire existences. The Yuan-Ti awakened. This would be a great foe indeed. Sarak is awake. Sarak uses Rasnasi. This curse feeds the lich. This curse consumes many worlds.
So would Jarek, has he heard or does he recognize the name Sarak? I guess to what extent does he know what a lich is?
Let's get two rolls from you. I think what it's gonna come down to is two history checks. So I think those are each at -1.
Yep, history's -1.
Actually, you know what? Don't even do them as D20s. Let me get two D100s. The first one we can do for Lich, and the second one we can do for a Sarek. Gotcha. So 68, and then 67. Oh, 63, and then a 64.
Uh,
What was the 68 from? Did I not?
I think no. So I think it was a 63 and a 4.
Okay, yeah, yeah. My bad. That's what I see there, but didn't it say 68 just before that? Did you have like a 5 already on there? I'm confused. Um,
Oh yeah, I rolled a 5 for something.
the yeah, yeah, gotcha. I would say at this point, neither of those are going to be cluing Jarek into any more information. As far as things go, you being in this fever dream alone, this is going to have to be information that you bring out to your party and you all use um, accordingly afterwards.
Yeah, so I think he'll definitely like try and make note, almost have those like names kind of burned into his mind here, even though they don't really elicit any kind of anything in his own head. Um,
Yeah, it won't stop that. You can still make from the sentence structure that Saja was referring to Acerak as the Lich, and that Saja was referring to the death curse being across multiple worlds. So on some level, you already kind of have like the sentence structure is there to say a certain amount of something. You yourself just don't necessarily have any other information to bring into it.
yeah, so I think like he would understand like, okay, so a Sararak is a lich, but that's kind of the from the context of the sentence more than kind of the deeper meaning of what that actually might mean is going to have to wait until he can hopefully speak with some people who might be more knowledgeable than he is. And this Saserac is is it is in Chult as well.
Sarah is beyond Abbe. Sarah feeds on Abbe through Schultz, through the temple of the trickster gods. People of Omu died for his construct to be born.
So hearing this and hearing the mention of the temples of the trickster gods, kind of Jarek is thinking, okay, maybe we are, on the right path as we're, or I guess he will be thinking that when he has the stream in the future, um, because we've now started our searching for the temples. Um, but this construct then, if we can find the way to end this curse, can it be, can it at least be stopped, destroyed, even?
Time will tell. Time is of the essence. The souls that are lost, those who cannot be returned to life, are within the soulmonger. If in time you can destroy it, their lives can be saved.
Jarek will nod and again, kind of also putting the this name of Soulmonger in his, trying to put that away in his memory banks. Then and that is what we must do. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to think if Jarek would have anything else here.
Yeah, I mean, if you like look towards the door in kind of like an uneasy moment, it's going to kind of turn to you and grabbing your attention. When you leave my presence, we will never see each other again. Think wisely.
This So Jarek will turn back kind of at that and kind of racking his mind again. This construct, this soulmonger, there some particular thing we need, some particular way it must be destroyed? Is it within Omu?
Give me one moment to answer that. You want to like step away for a second, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, I'm just going to be silent for a second while I look real quick.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna might make myself another cup of coffee, so it might take like a few minutes, and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm back.
Oh yeah, you're good. Um, yeah, that was a good question. I just wanted to make sure to give you a sufficiently solid response to it as well. Um, so I think the creature is kind of going to take a few moments as it's kind of searching through, and I think the response will be along the lines of Soulmonger can be destroyed like any being that gestates. With life, there is always possibilities of death. Sarak created its womb by perverting that which was most sacred to Abdoa. Of Omu rose the 9 trickster gods. In their death, 5 dungeons, 5 skeleton key to find access to the womb of the soulmonger. Do not pass beyond one without the other.
Jarek will nod. Um, Again, trying to kind of put this information away in his head to recall. When he wakes.
So theoretically, that was meant to be kind of poetic as well as cryptic. Um, but I do want to clarify that the idea that I think you should kind of be picking up on is that when you pass through these dungeons, you all probably want to be looking for one of these skeleton keys in each dungeon.
Right. Yeah. 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 I picked that up.
Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear because, like, that again, that's like me trying to come up with something off the top of my head. I wanted to make sure that it was clear.
Yep. Yep. I think uh Jarek at this point is going to he's going to think of the one more thing that he uh can think to ask, which would be we have also been asked to search for a chalice, the skull chalice of Jagakor. Have you any knowledge of this relic?
Roll a d4. Deep within the gears of hate, golden mastodon guards the chalice of the princess Mananoxe.
Sorry, you said deep within the gears of hate. I just want to make sure I heard you
Yep,
correctly.
that's correct. Deep within the gears of hate, a golden mastodon guards the chalice.
Okay, so Jarek hearing this is trying to kind of he'll his brow will furrow a bit as he's trying to, essentially trying to think of what this could mean. Um but he's going to finally nod, again kind of in a gratefully, and then finally he'll say, you have been most kind to entertain all of my questions. Is there anything I or my companions can do in thanks for what you have shared with me?
I am well beyond your reach. Your gifts and kindness to the people of Chult will repay any kindness you see from my presence. Continue forward. Find yourself redeemed, and worry not for your past.
So Jarek will give another kind of, kind of deeper nod. I give you my word. I will do all that I can. The people of Chult, in doing so for myself as well. Once again, my thanks. And think, I think at this point, Jarek is probably out of questions.
Gotcha. So as far as that goes, I think Saja Nabaza would kind of offer you to lay your head down and rest. And you will return to whence you've come. Step out from my shrine. You can return to the jungle for the time, but you will awaken where you've come from.
So Jarek is going to nod, and I feel like maybe kind of like at this offer of a place to lay his head, it's almost going to be kind of like a wave of like weariness is just going to kind of like wash over him, and I think he'll kind of like nod again, and kind of um, your offer is a welcome one. Perhaps perhaps some rest would do me good before I return to my task.
With that, let me have you roll a D100, please.